Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the MoonLightin Outdoors podcast. If you hadn't already, please go on over and like and subscribe to our YouTube channel as well as our Instagram and Facebook. Thanks, guys. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Today I have on the line Mr. Jake Parker. Jake lives out there in West Plains, Missouri. Just going to go ahead and introduce Jake. Jake, how are you, buddy?
Good, Justin. How are you?
I'm living the dream, man.
That's good to hear, man.
I really appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to come on and talk about your passion with us.
Man, anything to support MoonLightin Outdoors. I like what y'all guys are doing.
That's incredible, dude. I appreciate that a lot. So, guys, this is what Jake does. Jake runs Cold Mountain Game Recovery. He breeds and trains Catahoula curs for recovering wounded deer. Specifically wounded deer, is that correct?
That's correct.
Do your dogs do anything else, or are they just pretty much set up for tracking deer?
Well, they get into cows and hogs, but, you know, most of my line is centered around trailing dogs.
Sure. So just tell me a little bit about you and your wife. I guess the two of you pretty much do this as a team, is that right?
Yeah, so it's one of those deals where it's the passion of both of ours. We enjoy working with our dogs, and what better way to spend time in the woods with your wife, you know?
There you go. There you go. So I understand that you have to credit your wife for getting you into the Catahoula cur breed. Is that correct?
I do, man. You got to give credit where credit's due. She come into a relationship with two of the finest dogs I've ever come across in my life. And she definitely changed my views on a lot of things.
That's awesome. So this is something
sure.
that she was kind of into before she met you. Is that right?
Well, she had Catahoulas, and we both kind of got into the game recovery together. And but she definitely brought the Catahoulas into the relationship, that's for sure.
That's awesome. And what kind of dog were you married to before her?
I run blackmouth curs.
I was literally talking about a dog, by the way.
yeah. I've run blackmouth curs, and really was in love with a blue tick. You know, that was coon hunting days, and the Catahoula come into my life, and you know, they're just providers, man. They never in my life have I seen a dog that has so much drive for their owner.
That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible. So, you know, why did your wife originally choose the Catahoula breed?
To be honest with you, I'm not really sure. You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I have to ask her one day.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Elaborate with us a little bit about the Catahoula. It's a pretty unique.
Well,
it's a pretty unique dog, and I've heard of it before, but only because, you know, I've always had an interest in what you're doing, and if you follow tracking dogs at all, you're bound to stumble across a bloodhound and a Catahoula.
For sure, man. For sure. Any kind of cur dog is big time in the tracking world. The Catahoula, man, is actually one of the oldest dogs that's around. It's they come out of Louisiana, the swamp hog hunting, and people have took them from there. They one of the things so appealing about a Catahoula is their prey drive, man. Their eagerness to adapt to any situation that there is. You know, they can hog hunt, they can bay cows, you know, track deer, and just sit on the couch with them, man.
That's awesome.
Great dogs.
So your dogs your main dogs probably they stay in the house with you?
Yeah, Finn right now, she's our main dog, and I'm sure she's in there by the wood heater right now. Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Part of tracking is the bond, you know, that it's just she's full, no doubt about it.
Sure. So I've heard people in the past talk about, hey, if you want to have a good coon hound or whatever, you just can't treat it like a pet. So that's not so in the tracking dog industry.
It's really the exact opposite. Now, when you get into bay dogs, it's a little bit different. But that's a whole different story there. But on lead dogs, they got to have a bond. They got to know that you're working, together as a team. I've had coon hounds, and I was one of the ones on that. You separate pet from working dog. And as far as the tracking dog goes, I mean, they can sit right next to you or your kids in the morning time and be running tracks in the evening time. You got to have that bond for sure.
That's awesome. So, is it typical in most states that you have to keep them on a long tether when you're tracking, or is that just specific to some?
Well, just specific to some. I'd say more are actually on lead than off. Mm-hmm. And things are coming around, and this was something that's even with wildlife agents is something new. So working with conservation and hopefully we'll get laws lined out right. But as of right now, there's I want to say 11 or 12 states that are all on lead, and you kind of fall under the same laws now as a coon hunter does, and like Missouri, for instance, deer dogs are illegal. That's where the on lead comes, from. So.
Right. So what kind of sparked your interest in the game recovery business initially?
Well, lifelong deer hunter, and I'll just be honest with you, man, losing my own deer.
Yeah.
Making those bad shots, those bad calls myself, and that's what originally started everything. Was wanting to recover my own animals, and then it started with helping my family, and then it started with little outside friends here and there, and I said, well, I'm taking it this far, might as well keep going.
Sure. So, what? How? Tell me about the very first time you tracked a deer with a dog.
Oh, it was a nightmare.
It was horrible, huh?
Horrible. First time it was about a 3.5 acre blind thicket, and had a little slough. This was in Mississippi at the time, and just an absolute nightmare, man. This was a pup. I thought it was total different world than actually what it turned out to be. I thought any dog could follow blood, right? But that's not true. So I think I ended up bleeding more than the dog did. The deer did, honestly. It was it's a learning curve, man. It really is.
Well, I won't make you relive that too much more. We'll just end that right there.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. So you were talking about initially when you were thinking about getting into the game recovery business, it was a lot of it was based upon your you've lost a deer and you went through that. So and I'm just trying to think about this in from your mind and your eyes. Let's talk about shot placement and knowing when to start tracking your deer, and then how to set the scene for, okay, my blood's become sparse. I don't know what else to do. So maybe I can call would it be called a houndsman? What would it be called?
We called everything under the book, man. Most of the time, houndsman would be good. Dog man.
So Jake, the dog man Parker. I love it. So Jake, talk about that. So we're trying to set the scene here. I got a bad shot off on my doe. I can't find her. What do I do?
Well, I'd say initially, of course, if deer drops, load her up. If you get on let's say, 40, 50-yard track that you yourself seeing blood, and you get to the end of that, and you're starting to have to search a little bit, make your 15, 20 yards, just right out in front of your last blood. You know, if you're not seeing any blood, if you got tracking teams available, utilize that. Once you get out there spacing out 50, 100 yards, well, you know, the biggest thing that we hear is trackers. Well, we thought it was over the next ridge. You know, well, in the meantime, you've walked that whole blood trail, and everything that's on your feet is now a blood trail. You know, so when the dog comes in and has to work through the whole grid searching, you and your buddies or everybody back at camp walking through the woods, it just makes it a lot harder on the dog. So best suggestion I got, once you start to have to search, then's the time to call in the dog.
Right. If you know you have a team available. Okay.
If you have a team available, and they're becoming, you know, more and more popular. A lot of states will have a trackers page.
Mm-hmm.
So check those out. So you know, like Missouri, who we track for is Missouri Blood Trackers, and they have a map, you know, statewide with, you know, certified trackers on there, and somebody that you can give a call, and you know, this ain't their first rodeo. This
Sure.
ain't somebody Pomeranian. You know, it's certified tracking teams. That's the ones that are going to put your you know, your sons or your daughters, you know, first buck in the truck, or you know, it's pretty serious, man. It all starts with the hunter's choice first. It really does.
You know, Jake, I remember talking to you in a previous conversation when you were saying something about you never know if it's going to be the hunter's first deer or their last, and you know that's pretty awesome if you put things in that kind of perspective. You never know what that deer is going to mean to someone. So.
Never know, man. It's one of those deals where we track numerous, you know, kids, 7, 8, 10, first buck.
Mm-hmm.
You know, might track one for an older gentleman or an older woman that, you know, they might not get to harvest anything anymore. So,
right.
You know, those special times need to be, you know, saved. So
yep.
That's where we come into, you know, to the mix. And, a lot of trackers like ourselves, you know, we take pride in that.
Yeah. You know, I gained a whole lot of respect from you in like another one of these previous conversations when you said that, you know, you owe that to the animal to make a fair attempt. It doesn't matter if it's a spike or a yearling that somebody had shot. Jake Parker believes that it's worth it. You got to respect the animals, guys.
Certainly.
Yeah, if you take enough interest to pull the trigger, then by golly, you need to take enough interest to find that deer and make every opportunity available to yourself to do so. Right?
Couldn't agree more, man. You owe it to the animal.
Yeah. So, you different kinds of blood, I understand, give you kind of a different wait time. And when we were talking previously, you said, you know, if you get this, you might need to wait a little longer, whatever. Talk about that for a minute.
Okay. Let's start with bow season. I'll just give you a rundown of what we see in the field. A lot of high shoulder hits. Most bow hunters they're on up in the tree a good ways. You know, trying to place it in the vital area. A lot of times a little bit left. You know, you're dead center shoulder. That's a hard deer to recover. You know, I would say one of the hardest deer to recover is a high shoulder hit, just because simply most of the time they don't die.
Yeah.
You know, one of the keys to this is when you see a bright red, thin muscle blood. That's never a good thing. That's certainly when you need to back out and call a dog. Do not push any deer that you do see that. You know, a lot of times we get on like a gut shot deer. You know, some of these, like a large bow hit, you know, and it's 24 hours before we need to even actually track that deer. One of the reasons that we stick by these, you know, timelines is so we don't bump this deer and he ends up on a neighbor's property that you don't have permission to, you know, to go on. And basically respect for the animal. Let it lay down in its first bed and pass. The liver hit deer. If you got a dark, purplish red blood, that's 8 hours. Give that deer 8 hours of time to lay down. And a liver hit deer, once it's bumped, there's no telling where that deer is going to go. So best advice I have, we can go off a picture sometimes. Contact your local tracker, send them some pictures. Say, hey, man, I'm not real sure about this blood. What would you suggest? And 9 times out of 10, somebody that tracks pretty much on a daily basis, they're going to be able to tell you. And sometimes we're wrong. We're not perfect,
right.
But I would say that a picture will go a long way. A lot of times somebody sends me a picture and say, hey, bud, you don't even need me. Just wait an hour or two and going back in there. And it works a lot. The biggest thing is not to bump these deer. The natural reaction is to climb down out of the stand, go put your hands on her or him, and it leads to so many problems, unrecoverable deer that should have been recoverable.
Right.
I've sent you a couple charts, and maybe you can share those with some people. That right there will help out big time.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll make it a point to get those shared. Anything that we can do to help anyone out, we're all about that. So
certainly, man. That's why I like MoonLightin Outdoors so much.
Yeah, it means a lot, buddy.
We're on the same page.
It means a lot. So to keep your dogs, I know that you work the heck out of them. Her is just, you mainly use Sin, is that right?
We got several that but it's one of those deals that if I'm in a thick situation, we've got a male dog that I'll bring because he'll just bulldoze through just about anything, and it's like a tool basically.
Right.
Certain tracks call for certain things, but I will say that the hardest of the hardest, I'm bringing Sin with me.
Gotcha. So I understand Sin had a big find today. Is that right?
Yeah, man. 4-day-old shot she found for a guy that him and his buddies have searched and grid searched, and ended up being a large bowel broadside hit, and she made quick work out of it, man. 4 days, of course. The meat was pretty much gone at that point, but the hunter was able to put his tag on it, recover his horn, and a good ending to a bad story. Basically.
That's actually pretty incredible. And was there rain and all that? I mean, or was it just 4 dry days?
Right. Dry is actually not a tracker's friend. Moisture is a lot of people say, oh man, well, it rained. I shot a deer last night and it rained heavy overnight and all my blood's gone. Well, that's where a dog's going to help you out, because a lot of times we're not even tracking off of blood. We're tracking off a gland stem that immortally hit, whitetail, or, in this case, is putting off. So certainly don't think the rain's going to hurt your track. You might not be able to see it, but the dog's nose is going to.
That's pretty neat. So what do you do with your dogs in the off season just to keep them on point?
Well, I'll give you an example. Sin, she's going to have a little bit of off time after we wrap up hunting season. But we run, mock trails. We're saving deer hoofs and we're saving blood and, livers, and we're recreating everything that we see in the field.
Right.
If we're having a certain problem with older tracks, and we're going to run some older tracks during the off season. Having trouble with, circling or backtracking, we're going to work on that during the off season. A lot of times, once an older dog has it, she's pretty much on autopilot. Like then I can tell her, "Are you ready to go for a track?" Or my wife tell her, and she's pretty much trying to open the door on the back of the truck. she's ready to go.
That's
But
awesome.
younger pups, you've got to stay on them for sure.
That's awesome. So tell me this: if I shot a deer and I called you and said, "Hey, I need you to come over here and help me track my deer." Obviously, I'm in Indiana. You're out there in Missouri, but what would you charge one of your local guys to come out and track for you? Track for them.
Me personally, man, we work off the tips. Not knowing anybody's financial situation or not knowing if hey, that meat is going to provide for 5 kids back at the house. Me personally, I don't have a set fee. A lot of times I just, whatever is worth to you is what I'll track that deer for. And it works out good sometimes, and it works out, but in the end, I can't complain, man. I shake hands, I see smiles, I recover people's deer, and there is some trackers that do have certain fees. And best advice, try to find one in your area, have them on speed dial, and already know, what their mobilization is or what the recovery fee is. And but me personally, me and my wife as a team, we work off the tips only, and
That's
works
admirable. That's awesome. That says a lot about a guy's character, because I know that there's probably people that would never even think to pick up a phone to call a tracking service just because they assume it's probably going to be too much money. So Jake,
well, the first question we always get is, well, how much is this going to cost? And that kind of makes me feel like a lot of deer are left in the woods because of cost, and
yeah.
That's not something that sits very well with me.
Right. No, you have to think about, harvest numbers and how those numbers don't reflect at all the number of deer that were shot and ran off and died. And
certainly,
so
certainly, that's our local agent here. He been working with him a lot this year, and he's actually all for the tracking services, just for that particular reason right there. Just like today's example, 4-day-old track, most hunters have moved on. This guy here, he had his mind set on his buck. You don't always get that with a hunter.
right.
You and your buddies go out, look for this deer. Well, we can't find it. Well, that's just an extra deer that, that particular state, has lost that year.
Right.
And everything tags are all based off of numbers. So the tracking dogs can really help out conservation.
I'm a little disgusted because I've been watching on our local Facebook, and it seems like if someone asks about a tracking dog, people are making jokes at them and things like that. Guys, this is the real deal. I mean, you owe it to that animal. This is my opinion, but you owe it to that animal to make every effort possible to retrieve it. And I personally would never laugh at that, and I would probably just say that I'd lose respect for you if you did. So if you're one of my friends, please don't do that. I don't understand what would be, humorous about that. So that's just me.
Well, I feel the same way, man.
Yeah.
And we dedicate our lives to that. Tracking is not for the faint of heart. We take every call as we get them in. Sometimes 5-6 calls a day.
Right.
We try to fit in everybody. It's not for a huge profitability, I can promise you. It's for putting meat in the freezers for people. Number one, it's not leaving wounded animals or just animals for coyote bait, basically.
Yeah.
So you owe it to the animals. I mean, you do. If you're going to spend all the money, and this is one of the things that gets me about, there's some hunters out there, they spend, $1,500 on a deer lease, multiple, amounts of dollars on all their hunting clothes, their bullets. They go out, they make a bad shot. Everybody does it. Nobody is perfect. And then they won't, go a little bit extra to make sure that deer is either alive or dead.
Right. Right. So I imagine that you definitely have a most memorable track. Am I wrong?
I do, man. I do.
You mind to
Matter of
share that
fact, it's
story?
from this year.
Let's hear it.
I would. I think maybe y'all talked to this little guy, man. His name is Benjamin. And I'll give you a rundown on this. We've been tracking all day long. And, you know, I was tired. The dog was tired. And got home, and my wife said, you know, she's going to go out, pick something up for dinner because it was already late. I get rested up. She comes back in and says, hey, we got a 7-year-old little boy first deer. It's about an hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours away. Give me the rundown on it. And this is a track that needed to be handled ASAP. Mm-hmm. So we loaded everything up, made the drive, man, and just meeting this little boy and his father. Great experience, great people. He gave me the rundown of the shot. Basically, what it ended up being was really a far back high shot, broke steer back, you know, in the back legs down. And so we took this track for this little boy and actually come up on the deer very much alive. And, you know, handled everything that we needed to handle by law. So just seeing the smile on this little boy's face, man, when he walked up to his first animal, I've tracked a lot of deer, but that one right there stands out in my mind and probably will to the day I'm in the ground. It was just one of those deals, man, just warms you all over. You know, seeing the father, seeing the son, seeing that first moment, you know, that not many people were lucky enough to witness, you know, and it actually turned out to be just a huge buck. You know, kind of jealous. You know, I was busting does and little spikes, and when I was his age, and he's shooting 120 class deer. You know,
that's awesome.
But it was, man. It's a great kid, and those are what stands out in my mind the most, man. Is the moments that you can never get back. I've changed several pictures of it, man, and I'll actually send you some. The smile ear to ear.
That's awesome.
I mean, you couldn't. It was great.
We did interview that boy the other day, and then we would listen back on the audio, and it was a little bit cracking and spotty in places. So, you know, I don't know if the boy will be excited to tell the story the second time as he was the first, but I might call him up and see if we can't redo that just because I don't know if I think he lives in Florida, if I'm remembering right.
Yeah.
But
I
don't know.
They live.
Go ahead.
You should, man. Great kid.
Yeah, I think I'm going to call him up and see if we can't redo that, and maybe we can bring his face up on the screen and make it a little more personal for him because we just had him dialed in like this. But no, it's a great story, and if it's special to you, Jake, it's going to be even more special to us. We're gonna really play this up.
You know, he deserves it, man. There's a lot of kids that. I mean, while we were tracking his deer, he was telling my wife about Mozart. You know, there's all kinds of stuff. He's such an intelligent little kid, man.
That's great.
Way beyond his years, that's for sure.
That's great. So, I know that when we talked before, you said that you think that you've probably made between 180 and 200 attempts. Is that right?
Somewhere around in there. You know, they get lost in the years.
Right.
You know, I try to keep up with, you know, year to year and percentages and just to know, hey, do I need to improve or what do I need to work on? Of course, every day is a learning experience, you know, so to speak. So I would say 180, 200. I think we've run around 45 or 50 this year.
And out of the 180 to 200, you know, not all these deer are dying. Obviously, you're going to end up realizing that a lot of them lived. And first off, do you know when you go out tracking them, if you can't find them, do you just assume they lived, or do you assume your dog didn't do the trick, or what goes through your mind?
Well, certain situation, every deal is different. First shot thing, first couple 100 yards tell me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
The one of the things I can say about dog is a lot of times, they'll pretty much lose interest, and, if they're not putting out that certain gland scent, it's not looking good for recovery.
Right.
But anytime that ever happens, for a peace of mind of me, I'll basically take the last part that we tracked, and I'll start wind searching in a half moon at the direction deer was going. And sometimes I'll stretch out, 700-800 yards doing this, trying to pick up wind. Most of the time, the tracker's worst nightmare is leaving a deer in the woods that we've tracked. And I have had one. That was last year. And situation wasn't good, and it's still a nightmare. A lot of times, I can tell you for sure whether it's still alive or not. Just by sign in the woods.
Sure.
But nothing's for certain, man. There's infection sets in, or coyotes chase it down, or there's a lot of variables into that come into play. But somebody that has run several tracks, and they can pretty much tell you. The dog really tells you everything you need to know.
Right. Well, out of what would you think that your success rate would be? I know we kind of talked about that.
I think
That's hard to judge. That's hard to judge, but let's hear it.
It is. I think we're right now, season's still, underway, but I think we're somewhere around 38, 39% success. We've got multiple, trail camera pictures back with deer that we've tracked. And, but as far as recovery goes, I hope that we can end the season somewhere around, a little bit over 30%. I'd be happy. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, 30%, that ain't good." But you got to keep in mind that a lot of these deer are not dead. So 30%, I think, standard is 33%, 32% on lead is great. Some of these guys, they pick and choose their tracks, and we don't. We take every track that comes to us. If you call me and say, "Hey, I'm not sure about this one," we're coming. And those hurt your numbers big time. Yeah. But we take the good with the bad and try to put them in the truck.
That's awesome. That's incredible, Guy, and I think that just changing the subject off these hounds a little bit here. Guys, back home, Jake and his wife live off the grid. I think you said you're about 3 miles from the nearest power line. Is that right? 3 miles?
That's right.
Yeah. So, and I got a lot of questions about that, and I have some friends that are pretty interested in that kind of lifestyle too. So if you don't mind, Jake, maybe sometime I can pull you back in and we can discuss that a little bit.
Sure, man. Anytime.
Yeah.
Anytime.
I was talking to Jake another time, and I asked him if he was a prepper, and he informed me, no, he is not a prepper. He's prepped. So I'll never forget that.
Yeah.
Jake, is there any questions that I didn't ask that you think that people would really like to know about a tracking dog? Is there anything I
I think we covered a lot of it, man. The biggest thing that I've got to push is, if you're in doubt, you've got to pull off. You've got to contact the tracking team. Dog is great. They certainly pull some rabbit out of the hat tricks, but it all starts with the hunter. Everything. Just make the call. Get on Facebook. Get in touch with Justin. He'll get you in touch with me. I can put you in touch with a tracker nearby you. United Blood Trackers. Just make your searches. And the biggest thing about this is advice is free. I don't know a single tracker that you can't call on the phone and say, "Hey, this is our situation. this is what I've got. You mind if I shoot you a few pictures of this blood? And what do you think I should do? Everybody's going to steer you in the right direction. You got to make phone calls.
Right. Well, that's pretty solid advice, guys. So, again, this is Jake Parker, and Jake, you have a Facebook like page called Cold Mountain Game Recovery. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, Cold Mountain Game Recovery. And if you guys have any interest in following Jake, which I hope you do, go and give him a like on his Facebook page and show him some support. That'd mean a lot to me personally. It'd mean a lot to MLO. But with that being said, Jake, I really appreciate you having you on the show tonight. And I know there's going to be questions I didn't think to ask that as soon as we hang up I'm going to think of, but I really appreciate having you on, buddy.
Well, it's an honor, man. I can't thank y'all enough for trying to spread the word about this. The MoonLightin Outdoors, great respect for y'all, and keep doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it so much, buddy, and I'm sure that you and I will stay in touch.
Sure.
So good luck, man, in all you do, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right, man. Have a good night.
Yep. See you, buddy. Guys, that's Jake Parker. I'm very, very pleased I got to meet him. I've been friends with him now for a little while. Met him probably just a few weeks ago, a month or so. We talked through Facebook and on the phone and things. So when I say meet him, I guess I'm using that lightly. But we got to the point where we talk nearly every day recently, and it's just been a real pleasure. And I got nothing but kind words to say about Jake. And I certainly learned a lot about the tracking industry today. And I think that this is a great show for us to have and put on. But please do go over and like and subscribe to, I say subscribe because it's out of habit, but like his Facebook page, that Cold Mountain Game Recovery, and follow him. If nothing else, just admire how pretty his dogs are. They're gorgeous. But again, this is the MoonLightin Outdoors podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We love you. Take care.